AI is pretty good at understanding what people want quickly, and you can really quickly make prototypes that clients do like easily with an LLM. I keep on switching between AI and LLM. It's LLMs, and just do it in a spreadsheet. It doesn't have to be really complicated. And in fact, if you want to get a client, specifically enterprises, interested in this stuff and doing this stuff, you need to make it as simple as possible. And this is just one way that I've found really works. Every client that I've mentioned this kind of thing to is just really bitten onto it. So just make it as easy as possible. It doesn't need to be complicated. Hi, I'm Will Rice, and this is SEO in 2026 Additional Insights.
Will, what's your number one SEO tip for 2026?
Yeah, so it's going to be an AI themed one, which might feel a bit banal at this point, but I mean, we are in that age. And yeah, at the moment, like, so I typically work with enterprises on the SEO side of things. But one thing that I found with enterprises, and people who work at enterprises listening to this will probably know what I mean, there's a lot of red tape often at enterprise companies. So we can't change this, we can't add any more content here, we can't do this and that. And I think one way to get around this is just changing the CTAs. We've already got like our landing pages for our products or our services or whatever. I think one really good way getting something pushed through, which is what I've found anyway with enterprises, is quite like this optimizing existing traffic coming to the site. And what I find that AI is really good for is understanding what would be really useful for your potential customers. So people that are already coming to the site, it understands what your products are and therefore what somebody might find really useful. As an example of this, I've been working with some telecommunications clients recently, and so some of the things that they might sell is like SD-WAN or like SASE. Some people call it SASE. And basically it's like networking frameworks for like multi-location businesses. Regardless, there's a product. And at the moment, like their CTAs are just download this PDF. And like, I don't know about you or anybody else that's listening, download a PDF just doesn't, it's not sexy. Like, it just doesn't do anything for me. I'm never downloading PDFs personally. I know that's a sample size of one.
It would be interesting to know a slightly increased sample size, wouldn't it? Because just because something's not sexy, of course, doesn't mean that it's not necessarily something that a business shouldn't be doing. I mean, I've certainly had a lot of leads in the past through PDF downloads, but I haven't done it a lot recently. But gives me contemplating perhaps doing it again, and now double thinking whether it's actually worthwhile doing. Is this something that you've talked to other people about, and you see a trend of less people being willing to share a name and email address for a PDF?
I mean, I think people still, we still get conversions through that method of having download a PDF, but I just think the value that somebody gets out of it is just not as good as what you could potentially have.
Yeah.
So typically what you'll have from a PDF is what you'll probably find in a blog. You'll probably find the same information on an article anyway elsewhere online. Even crazier is that most most enterprises that have these download PDF lead captures is that they actually have their PDFs indexed on Google as well anyway, so somebody could search in for that PDF and just get it that way instead of actually having to pass over any of their details. I mean, that's just a bit of a, like, you know, duh moment where they shouldn't have their PDFs that they're trying to, like, generate leads from indexed on Google. It does work, but I just think that there's better stuff out there, basically.
But you're advocating the creation of tools and I guess more interactivity on a website in order to actually keep people on the website and drive more user retention and then create some kind of direct call to action as a result of interacting with that tool, I presume?
So yeah, basically the thing that I think that people are going to, if you can provide somebody with a tool that provides more value, then people are going to use that more. So let's say you've got a download PDF button, basically gives you the same information you'd get in a blog or article elsewhere on the web. I don't know, sometimes you might have some really unique content, but I feel like if you have that really unique content, you can just put it up as an article and get traffic for it that way. Anyway, regardless, I don't want to dwell too much on the PDF download, but what I do want to like focus on is if you have a product or service and then you use AI to understand somebody that was coming to a page like this, what would be really valuable for them? You can just ask, I have this page, look at this page, what would be a better call to action than what we have already on the page? And it's really good at quickly understanding this. And so it'll come up with a list of options for you to create. And usually I find that the tools and the calculators are the most attractive ones to me when I'm eyeballing it. So, for example, if you can have, like, say you've got product X, if you could have a cost savings calculator for product X, that's much more valuable to someone. So you can have, they're on, let's say, they're on like a legacy version of product X, but if they get product X, in 1 year, this is how much they're going to save. In 2 years, this is how much they're going to save. And in 3 years, this is how much they're going to save. You want to make it like quite lean. So you don't want to put like loads of questions that are just going to increase friction. Just like 5 or so questions that would be really valuable to a sales team. This is how many employees we have. I don't know, this is the products that we're already using. This is how many sites that we have. Whatever's like the questions that are going to be relevant to your business. AI can quite quickly figure that out. I think just having, these questions and then being able to understand how much somebody is going to save by getting this product, that's a lot more useful to a potential customer. So in this case of an ROI calculator, like a cost savings calculator, with that information, they know how much they're going to save, and also they can go to their internal stakeholders and say, look, there's this product that I'm quite keen on getting, we've got an estimate for how much we're going to save, and they can actually use that themselves. So you're kind of like equipping them with the information that they need, which I just think is way better than having like download PDF or click here to go to the next article kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly understand that offers an improved user experience. I guess 2 follow-up questions are, what are you trying to do here from a measurable SEO perspective? Is this simply having greater user retention on the page, demonstrating better UX to Google? And also, kind of in relation to what we're talking about, opt-ins, does this result in less opt-ins? Do you actually try to have some kind of opt-in post the tool that you're offering the user?
The benefits to SEO, just having a calculator or some sort of tool in the first place, having that as like an extra landing page, because people will be searching in for things like that. You'll often find that the calculators or tools that are suggested from AI are usually pretty keyword based and keyword focused tools or calculators anyway. So they are things that people are genuinely looking for. And if you can have a tool created from this process and target that keyword, then you've got a new piece of content there that answers people's questions.
Is there any particular AI that you're using more than others to generate ideas and to perhaps even create the code necessary to add to the website and add this tool?
Honestly, this this tactic is so unbelievably simple, and you want to keep it simple as well, because if you make things too complicated, enterprises are just going to get put off the idea, and they're going to think this is too much, like we're going to need to do too many things here. It's so simple. You don't need any like complicated processes for this. I mean, I've done it with ChatGPT. I prefer Claude Code. Like that is the LLM that I use. But you can do it with ChatGPT in like 5 minutes. Like the first step is plug in the URL, or just say what product you're trying to sell or service. Ask what CTAs people would likely look for, what tools, calculators that they would want to build. Let's say it is a cost savings calculator. Just say, can you build me a prototype spreadsheet for this, including all the formulas, given what you know about this product and general industry knowledge, what would be valuable to calculate this thing? Give me all the formulas, and then once you've got that, you can do that in 5 minutes. Once you've got that, you approach the client, or if you're working in-house, then you approach somebody else, one of your colleagues. Approach the product expert and say, can you spend 30 minutes to an hour with me just going through these 5 calculations and just fine-tuning it a bit? And once you've got those formulas that people are happy with, you can just plug that back into ChatGPT, Claude Code, or whatever, and just have a working landing page that you can put onto the site super easily. And then if you want to tinker around with the design and things like that, then you can do whatever you want. But to get like a working model, you can do this in half a day easily, and that's with the product expert's time.
As a starting point, is it worthwhile incorporating keywords that you know you'd like to target for the page, or keywords that are important for the business, and perhaps even competitor URLs as well, so that the LLM's got a little bit more to chew on in terms of relevance? Or would you rather just leave it up to the LLM greenfield just to decide what's best?
No, it's a good point. Generally, like, the more information you give, the better the answer is going to be with these kind of things. But honestly, I have found that it is pretty good at just coming up with the stuff. But for this specific methodology which I'm talking about, I mean, I use LLMs for other stuff, and my God, I get so frustrated using LLMs. But this is genuinely something that is quite good at, and that's why I'm a bit of an advocate for this. It's genuinely really easy to do, and you don't actually have to have much SEO, CRO knowledge. Like, anybody can do this. I mean, yeah, you can plug in some keywords that will be valuable. Really, the keyword research has already been done when it comes up with the idea of what calculator you should be using, because it's already understood like what's important to those people, to those potential customers. So that part's already done.
And what do you do with the data when someone actually fiddles about with the tool, interacts with the tool, submits whatever details they do? Should you be looking to collect that data and further hone the tool from there?
Yeah, I almost forgot that part. Yeah, no, that's absolutely. If you can hook that up into something that feeds into like a CRM, or like I don't know, directly into like the sales teams, however you do it as a business, if you can get that information, number of employees, whatever they've put into that calculator, number of locations, number of websites, whatever it is that's relevant to your product, if you can get that to the sales team, then the sales team have a more informed basis of like who this customer is, what they're actually looking for, and then when they do get in touch with them, they can provide like a much more comprehensive and tailored solution for them, which is just way better. Obviously like the email or the phone number or whatever they collect should be going to the CRM anyway. But yeah, the next step, which is even better, is if you can get the data that they've actually put in into the CRM too.
Yeah, because the next question was going to be in relation to how do you make this different? How do you be more unique than other competitors out there? Because if everyone's doing this, if it's so easy to do, I guess the way to do that is to take the data that the tool produces, to hone it with your own data, and then to enhance the conversations, the quality of conversations that your salespeople are having with prospects as well.
Yeah, I think it is a very easy way to do things, but I just don't see many people doing this at the moment. I'm doing this based off the enterprises that I'm working with, and there's not a lot of competition for these tools and calculators being produced. I think just getting something up there in the first place and hitting that mark, hitting that keyword, and providing that solution just in the first place, everybody should be doing that. Not everybody is doing that just yet, and I think it's one of those things that not everybody realizes how easy it is to do. But then once you've got that first tool or that first calculator on board, yeah, like just with any other piece of content, it's kind of one of those things that you do want it to iterate, and you want to have like it change over time and become better. And you can do that once it's up, your sales team might start to think, oh, actually, the questions that we're asking on this aren't actually super relevant. They're not actually helping us make sales. Your sales team might be saying, well, it would be better if we asked this because then that would really help us make a sale, instead of, knowing the number of websites that they have or whatever said calculator had asked them.
Will, what's the key takeaway from the tip you shared today?
Key takeaway is AI is pretty good at understanding what people want quickly, and you can really quickly make prototypes that clients do like easily with an LLM. I keep on switching between AI and LLM. It's LLMs. And just do it in a spreadsheet. It doesn't have to be really complicated. And in fact, if you want to get a client, specifically enterprises, interested in this stuff and doing this stuff, you need to make it as simple as possible. And this is just one way that I've found really works. Every client that I've mentioned this kind of thing to has just really bitten onto it. So just make it as easy as possible. It doesn't need to be complicated.
Will Rice is SEO Director at Measure Minds Group. Find out more over at measuremindsgroup.com. Will, thanks so much for being part of SEO in 2026.
Cheers.
I've been your host, David Bain. Get your copy of SEO in 2026, the book, over at SEOin2026.com.